Hi, welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest for this special Friday bonus episode is Lewis Bennett, a documentary filmmaker whose new picture, The Sandwich Nazi, opens at Toronto's Carlton Cinemas today, Friday, May 5th. Lewis picked Stand By for Tape Backup, a remarkable video mixtape by Ross Sutherland, adapted from a multimedia piece he performed in 2014. It's a monologue set to the images from an old VHS cassette filled with snippets of English TV broadcasts, music videos, ads, a clip from Ghostbusters. But the images stop and start, bleeding into each other as Sutherland talks about emotional collapses and personal spirals, and the whole thing becomes something stranger and more involving than just watching someone watch television. It's streaming for free on Vimeo and at standbyfortapebackup.com right now, and I would strongly suggest you see it before you listen to this episode, partly because our conversation will make less than no sense if you don't know what we're talking about, and also because Stand By for Tape Backup is a really remarkable work, and you should see it even if you don't listen to this episode. This is Someone Else's Movie.
It's just a film that you don't know where it's going from the very beginning, and that's really exciting, and it has a sort of a playfulness with it. It doesn't seem to care. It's not too concerned about its audience. Like there's a few sections where it just stops and we just have this black screen, and there's like for sometimes like 5 minutes at a time, or there's like a still frame of Bill Murray from Ghostbusters, and it's kind of like a punk rock film that is exciting, and and kind of, I don't know, it doesn't know what am I trying to say?
Well, let me pull you around to a different angle. What was your experience of it? Did you get to see it with Sutherland in person?
No, I saw it in Buenos Aires at the Bafisi Festival there. I don't know why I picked it. I think it just looked like an interesting film. And yeah, I was kind of blown away, and it was my favorite film that I saw at the festival. And then I saw that he put it up on Vimeo recently for free, which is cool.
Yeah, a reminder to people listening, watch the damn thing. I've already told you once.
Yeah, so you can watch it for free on Vimeo right now. And I was kind of curious as to why he chose to put it up online for free. I think that's cool, and definitely something. Like all of my short docs, I think I made like 12 of them, that they're all up on Vimeo for free, and I don't know. It kind of makes me want to make weirder, smaller movies and put them up online for free, I guess. I don't know. It's financially, it's probably not the best, but I think it's the kind of movie that I want to make in the future. The experience of our last doc, The Sandwich Nazi, has been kind of it's been a bit of a pain in the ass, and so I want to go back to making things just for fun.
Something internal, maybe? Like something that comes from you instead of an exterior. Because the thing about Stand By for Tape Backup that I was so stunned to see is how effective it is at putting you in the head of the person watching the videotape, of the kid version of Sutherland. There's a moment, like the clip of Ghostbusters that keeps repeating, just to the point where this is the scene where I can't imagine somebody listening to this episode not having seen this thing already, but this is the moment where Bill Murray is slimed, or just before, when Onionhead approaches him in the hotel hallway. It's terrifying by the time we get to the point where 10-year-old Ross is watching this thing over and over and over again. The individual frames are really disturbing by the time we reach that point. We're seeing it slowed down and reprocessed, and you finally understand, oh yeah, if I was 10 and stumbled on this with no knowledge of what I was watching, I would hide behind the couch. I would never come into the closet. I would be frightened to leave the room forever. And that's something that, like, documentaries don't do that. Even personal documentaries don't put you in the headspace the same way. Of the young version. I mean, like, that's just conceptual art at that point, and it's still just a clip from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. It connects you to him very directly. Him as a kid and him now. in a way that a lot of films don't, and that's definitely an exciting thing about it. And
so when you say you're looking to do something personal, would it be similar? Would it be that kind of experimental activity, or?
I guess just scope and sort of just something made at home, and it has a homemade DIY feel to it, and that's exciting, I think, to me. It comes off as a little bit glib and like there's no effort put into it, but it's clearly very constructed, and there's a lot of artifice in the way that, like, obviously the rewinding was done in post and all these sort of things where you're watching it and you're like, oh, that's that just him pressing play on a VHS. But as I watched it the second time recently, I was kind of seeing all those little bits and pieces of things and sound mixes and music. And when I first watched it, I kind of just immersed myself in it and didn't pick all those things up. And then afterwards I could see that clearly they had put a lot of work into it. And the spoken word, like how it starts out with narration and then goes to spoken word and then goes to kind of a rap. That the way that flowed was really effortlessly, and when you're watching it for the first time, you don't really know where it's going, and that second viewing made me think, they spend a lot of time piecing this together. The other thing I really like is the narration. He sounds hungover or kind of depressed, or like, it's not, the narration is very, I don't know, how would you describe his narration?
It's kind of weary, isn't it? It's somebody who is he's not enthusiastic about sharing this. Like, it's an artifact. It sounded, at first I thought the framing was sort of going to be that we're watching like Cloverfield, like an artifact has been retrieved and we're watching it to see what it means. And then instantly it's, no, that's not it. We're doing something else. The context of it is personal and important. But I think that's part of the way that it seduces you, that you're listening to someone confess something and he's tired of holding it in. And so we're watching the tape, not for the first time in 30 years, but for his 30th time in a year. It's an exorcism of all this stuff. He's letting it out. It's venting. I saw it at Hot Docs at a press screening with maybe 8 people in the theater, and none of us had any idea what was going on. And it's just, when it snaps in, it's so great, because not only is this really interesting and really kind of bristling with ideas and turning itself inside out to show us what's going on, but it's also the work of somebody who knows exactly what he's doing. It's not fumbling. It pretends to fumble here and there. There are things that the narrator, that whatever character Sutherland is playing, can't quite get into right away, but eventually gets to. But the way it circles and the way it comes through, it's all just so elegant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
And as you say, the structure of it is created artificially. We're not really watching a VHS tape. We're watching somebody DJ a digital file. But the sound effects were so oddly comforting to me. I mean, I grew up with video cassettes, and that first sound of the heads engaging, coming forward and wrapping the tape around it, that feels good to me. It's just that's my, what is it, ASMR? That's the thing that just makes me feel happy.
I totally agree. I think, and doesn't I felt like the first 30 seconds is just black or something, like
in color bars.
Yeah, there's a few things like that in the film where, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, this is a different kind of movie.
Yeah. I mean, aesthetically, it replicates something that doesn't happen anymore, but in a modern and immediately contemporary understanding of it.
I've been going back through old home videos recently, and I cut a short recently that's all home video of my dad. It's kind of a dad humor type short doc, and so I've been sort of immersing myself in that world and learning to digitize. And I've done that before, but kind of getting really into the specifics of how best to digitize things. And
are you working with actual film, or are you transferring it yourself?
No, not film. All like Hi8 and that sort of thing. So I've been kind of nerding out on that stuff. So maybe that could have been one of the reasons why I was thinking about this film recently. There was a couple others that couple other movies of that era, or aesthetically films that are similar in aesthetic that I've also been thinking about, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Like Heavy Metal Parking Lot, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know, there's a couple others that have been on my radar.
So not found footage exactly, but kind of reinterpretations.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Beaver trilogy?
No.
Because that's one that I was thinking of watching this. The Beaver trilogy is a monologue. Initially, it's a documentary. The first one is this weird guy called the Beaver Kid who followed the filmmaker and wanted to be part of whatever it was he was doing. He saw a guy with a TV camera and said, I want to do this for you, and he performs himself. And then subsequently, the filmmaker, the guy holding the TV camera who lucked into this person, shot it twice, replicated it. He shot recreations of this, once with Crispin Glover and once with Sean Penn.
Oh, I've heard about this.
And then there's a fourth part of it. He shot over decades, and then there's a fourth part of it that sort of re-examines it all and brings it back together. That's Beaver Trilogy Part 4. I have no idea even where you'd find it now. It's probably online somewhere. But that played... I'm pretty sure that played Hot Docs too. There was a sort of a... I think Heavy Metal Parking Lot was in the same series. There was a retrospective kind of forward-backward thing a few years back, and it's just... These things are now mesmerizing, not just because of what you see, but how you see it. And the idea that this thing has survived for 20 or 25 years to emerge now and still be really, really weird. The VHS tape might even be in that box now that I think about it.
Oh, nice.
The screener for the first trilogy. In the move, we excavated all these things, and I found boxes and boxes of videotapes and all my old audio cassette interviews from the late 80s and early 90s before I went digital for recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can only imagine what's on them. It's been forever, and I haven't had the time or really the inclination to dig through them, and I'm afraid that playing the tapes will kill them because they'll stretch.
Oh, yeah. Is that how it works with old tape? Or
yeah, if it hasn't been stored perfectly, and God knows it hasn't been.
Yeah.
I bought a little cassette deck, like a Walkman with a USB port to transfer them, but I'm afraid to start.
Yeah.
And there's stuff on there. Oof. I have an interview with Peter Falk and Jenna Rollins from '92 from the American Film Institute when I was out there, and the Forrest Gump press tour, the junkets for Death Becomes Her, and all kinds of stuff. But I'm scared to.
Oh, you gotta dig through it.
Yeah.
You gotta dig through it. I had such a good time going through the old family videos, but yeah, that sounds. Just looking at all these boxes, it's like there's so many treasures and stories in there that are waiting to come out.
But it's a task.
Yeah,
it's going to be work.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing. That's the feeling I got from watching Stand By for Tape Backup. I'm watching him I'm watching him excavate his own childhood in the same way. It's not about watching the clips. It's about feeling what he feels when he watches them.
Yeah.
And apparently he performs it live too. So I'd love to see that.
Yeah. I think that's where it came from originally. Was a fringe festival.
Yeah. But the attraction of experiencing someone else's memories is just like, that's what movies are, right? That's what everything is, a chance to inhabit someone else's emotional state.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think his childhood, but also him throughout his life, I guess there's those different stages, like the scene with the bank commercial that's repeating, right. And he's talking about when he was working at a bank, and I think he was making a fair bit of money, but was just going out and drinking all his money away every weekend. And I think in the film he says he did that for 4 years. And there's again an honesty of someone really putting themselves out there. And I mean, as best we can tell, it does seem like a documentary, but it seems like he's talking about his real life. And some of those scenes were interesting too, but keeps it funny, keeps it light, and even in that kind of sadness, there's sort of bits and pieces that are hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and the way he slips into a kind of a hip hop cadence here and there it's both a way of keeping our energy up over this 1 hour monologue, and also showing us that there's a self-awareness that this is a performance, that it's not like a suicide note.
Yeah.
Because there's always that third level of device that you're waiting for. It's like, well, what am I really watching? Is it going to be a big revelation at the end? And then I think once the first incidence of the cadence comes in, it's like, oh no, you're just playing. You're just this is going to be okay. Whatever it is, it's the work of somebody who's come out the other side of whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bank commercial sequence and the depression that follows, and the sense of someone who has been going in the wrong direction, but now clearly has found what he's better at or what he's happier at. It's it's something you can root for. It makes it more human.
Yeah.
While you're watching old videotape.
For sure. And I think you can almost see a progression in his life as well. When I rewatched it, I was looking him up on Twitter, and he's got a podcast, and there was just some photos, and I got an overall sense that things are going good in Ross's life. And I feel like maybe like those early days of the bank were like, I don't know, it's totally psychoanalyzing a guy who I've never met and have only watched one of his or a couple of his films. Right. But I feel like Ross is doing good these days, which is, it's nice to see. I don't know. Yeah. It could be, they say you shouldn't, like people were always trying to analyze Trump and
it's
prescribe him. Yeah, they're trying to prescribe him all these things, and lots of psychiatrists are like, "Don't do that. Like, you don't know." And so, I don't want to. Maybe you're still miserable, Ross, if you're listening. I don't know, but I get the sense that things are going well in his life, which I feel like you can kind of see the film. Yeah, like I say, it's kind of sullen and sad, and it sounds like he's having a rough go, but it could be one of those things where he recorded it on a bad night, or I don't know. I guess digging through, I don't know, your grandfather's dementia and death, and immersing yourself in those things in such a way is inevitably not going to be a fun thing to do, and so it's...
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that occurred to me watching it, is the suggestion that he's doing this to avoid that. That he's immersed himself in a project. Again, and this is where I start wondering if it's him or if it's a character that he's constructed for the purposes of watching this video. Like, what if the context of the video is simply assigned to it by this fictional premise? Like, what if he's just decided that this is the backstory of this tape and invented an entire thing around it? And it's fascinating, even if it isn't the case, to consider it, because he kind of gives you the room to think about it and confronts you with these major emotional beats that then could be feeding into something else or fed by something else, and you just you're always wondering about, or I'm always wondering about the existences of the things that I'm watching. Like, what is happening? How did this get in front of me? And what were the circumstances? And why why is it important that I watch this?
Yeah. No.
There's a drive to it. There's a need to share. I just keep coming back to that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So you as a filmmaker, what attracts you to things? What do you want to share? What's the chemistry?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. Yeah, this one always gets me. I never really have a good answer. I don't know. I think it's never anything specific, but it's empathy and comedy and I don't know if I have an answer for that one. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You sort of work on an intuitive level, I guess. But if you spend years working on something, there must be a compulsion at least, right? Or a need to finish.
Yeah, what would that be?
Or is it that you just start and want to see where it goes?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer on that. Why do I do it? I don't know. It's just fun. I think I just get... Yeah, I think maybe it's a compulsion. Maybe I get obsessed with it, and I like to see it through. I like sharing things. It's fun to... I don't really like... I don't know. I'm not good at promoting films or Q&As and stuff like that. But I think I like the idea. I think that maybe that's why I also like putting things online. Is that people can watch it and I don't need to sort of sell it, I suppose. Right, so that part's like kind of fun. But so yeah, I think I really do enjoy people like making something and then showing it to people.
Right. So it's just the act.
I think so.
Putting
Yeah.
something out there.
Yeah. I think that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that fascinates me about that is that so many people now, and Standby for Tape Backup is weirdly part of it. There's an online need to sort of be demonstrably yourself, to show people who you are, and distinguish yourself in a weird compulsive way. Like you can always tell, just the same way the eye can always tell when something is real and something is digital. We're still able to figure that stuff out. I think online there's still a good sense of what's real and what's fronting, what is artificial and what is artifice. And the honesty is the thing that people say they respond to, but I think they really want narrative. Like, you want to watch the dog jump over the hedge. You don't want to watch the dog be cute, even though that's what the dog will do all by itself. You want to see action.
Yeah.
And so much of this, it's like we're recording this on May the 4th, and Jimmy Fallon just released a special video of all the Star Wars characters edited to sing Smash Mouth's All-Star. And for the love of God, why? Like, it's just the need to be looked at, the need to get clicks. That's the thing that's fake. Like, that's the thing that reads to me as desperation or phony. And people love it, and it shares, and I was like, ugh. You know, I want to know. I mean, I'll probably never get it from Jimmy Fallon because I don't think he has that level of introspection, but I want to know why Ross Sutherland put this together. I want to know why people do the things they do, not what they're doing. The why, the reasoning behind it is so much more interesting, and that's why there's room to unpack. That's what I want. I want to be able to just sort of wallow around inside of things. Yeah. Because I'm greedy and I want people to do what I want. But the compulsion to share this piece of himself from 1989 or whenever the tape was recorded is just something I can understand. Like, I understand the need to define yourself on your own terms and to show people that this image is meaningful to me for this precise reason. And because that's how art works, you know, like, we all own the culture we consume, even if we didn't produce it. I'm fascinated to see how someone can have such a radically different experience of Ghostbusters than I did. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. And so, yeah.
You don't get much of a sense of what his reasoning is behind it either, and I tried to look up some interviews and stuff like that, and he's not putting a lot of stuff out there as to the construction of it, which is kind of exciting to, in a way, to watch that, or like to not know as well. Like, he's keeping things mysterious in a certain way, which I think was interesting.
Yeah, the intuitive feeling. I don't know if even he can explain why some of those choices are there. Yeah. Besides what he says in the monologue.
Yeah, yeah. It also has it has a bit of a podcast feel to it, especially because some of the visuals, like, it just sits there for a while, or we're seeing the same thing over and over again. It has a, like, directly connected to your brain kind of feel to it that is exciting and works in that way as well, I think. I guess it's also about sort of how we all connect differently with pop culture, with Jaws, or with all these different things.
Yeah, it's just fun to engage with culture on that level, like somebody else's culture, somebody else's appropriation. It's basically what this show is. Is just the idea to dive into something that isn't yours and swim around in it. And the final question of the podcast is always the same, which is, what, if anything, of Standby for Tape Backup have you borrowed or stolen or referenced or, you know, interpreted or even absorbed into your own creative DNA? Is it floating around in you somewhere or in your work?
Yeah, I guess the last short doc that I made a few months back, it's basically, I was going through all the home video and digitizing all our old home video, and had also recalled this from the past. My dad would always go around and, like, film everybody at Christmases and say something intelligent. That was a line that he would repeat to everybody. So I assembled a short film of all these different interactions, and then threw in a bunch of other old family videos. And I think it's. I think I don't want to make too many films about personal stuff. I don't think my life is that interesting, but I think in a certain way, from time to time, I kind of want to step into my own life and put myself out there a little bit. I think that film probably I think Ross's film and some other docs that I've seen recently where people really put themselves out there. I think that's exciting to watch. I love watching that, and I love taking that in, but I'm personally uncomfortable putting myself out there. Mm-hmm. So I think in that way it's I want to try that. I work at a university in Vancouver, and this year I work with a lot of doc students, and this year a lot of them chose to make films about themselves or stories about themselves, and one of the faculty there, she dubbed it selfie films or something like that, which
selfie cinema.
Yeah, exactly, which cracked me up every time I thought about some of their films or thought about some of my films that have been more personal films. Mm-hmm. It can, selfie films, I guess, if we want to adopt her term, they can be terrible. They can be self-indulgent and way too long and uncomfortable and just bad. They can be so bad, but they can also be so strong. And I think this is a film that Ross's film is a film that it works on all levels for me personally, and I guess could be a selfie film if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I find that there are documentaries just coming out of Hot Docs. There are so many documentaries that are just from the perspective of the filmmaker, mm-hmm. and some of them are absolute narcissism. They're just, look at me, what I do, look at me being an investigative journalist and inserting myself into a story and forcing my perspective into the doc. And then there are others where your perspective is essential. The filmmaker needs to be part of the story. There's a movie called Unrest by a woman named Jennifer Bray who suffers from, I'm going to get the name of the actual, it's chronic fatigue syndrome, but it's since been redefined as myelin, I'm going to get it wrong, ME, it's called ME. And you need to see her struggling with this thing in a non-performative way, with the camera on her, just showing you how difficult it is for her to simply sit up, to understand how she's made this movie, because she repeatedly says that she's making this film from her own bed, and she does get up and do other things here and there when she's feeling better, but you need to know her limitations to understand the accomplishment of the film and why any message of hope or optimism is so valuable. Other ones, not so much. I think it's that's in the editing, right? You need to be not just willing to confess to the camera, but you need to be able to understand how people will perceive it. And that's when it becomes good. Yeah. When you get outside yourself and see how it can be used. And that's what Sutherland does. And by me not knowing exactly where he's coming from, and if it's a character, if it's real, and how that relates to the experience of me watching it, that's a level of engagement that might not be there otherwise. And yeah, I'm real happy for it. For sure. It's what it needs to be. And so for yourself, I mean, The Sandwich Nazi is in theaters in Toronto today. Yeah. After, it was 2 years after Hot Docs premiere. Yeah. Right? So what's been going on since? Since then, I've been working on some short docs, mm-hmm. and that's sort of going to be the plan for a while, I think. I think I kind of want to go back to... In 2012, I started making this series of short docs where I was trying to make one a month for a year. I think I ended up making like 10 that year or something like that. I didn't quite make it. But I learned so much from doing that, and it was such an enjoyable process to kind of jump from project to project, and then having to live with this doc for so long it's just too long to look at the same footage and the same story. So I want to get back into kind of doing things quickly and be loose with style and try some different things. I've sort of started doing. I shot a short doc with my mom over the winter, all in night cam mode on like a high 8 camera, like an old high 8 camera. It's sort of a horror doc. Kind of borrowing from some of the Winnipeg film group, kind of quick editing, but they kind of have a film aesthetic. I guess mine's more video, I suppose. I don't know why I'm drawn to video. I don't really have as much of a
I don't care like about film, or film versus digital doesn't really, it's not a conversation I'm too excited to have, but I like video. I have a fondness for it, I suppose, and maybe just the cameras, that's kind of what we grew up using. So so that's my long way of saying I'm gonna make a bunch of weird short docs and see where things go from there.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a new job that I got at a university in Vancouver called Capilano, and I love it. It's like the best thing that's ever happened to me, maybe. And I kind of lucked into the job, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot better than making films. Everybody's happy and excited, and I don't know. I'm sort of, I'm going to do that for a while. And
all right. Yeah. But if you're happy in your job, then that means if you do make films, then there'll be films you want to make.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting too.
Absolutely. Yeah. This summer I was going to take the 4 months off. I'd saved up enough money to just make my own films this summer. But then a editing job came up for a film that I was really excited to do. So I'm going to jump into that, at least for a month or two. But it's nice to be able to take things that I really want to do instead of just, like when we were
Go
making
from gig to gig.
Yeah, when we were making the Sandwich Nazi, I was like, I have to say yes to every single job that comes up because I'm just spending money on this documentary. So yeah.
No, freedom is important.
Yeah.
Just the ability to be open to stuff as opposed to having to schedule every last second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck with it. Thank you. Ross, if you're listening, you're up. Come on down. My thanks to Lewis Bennett, whose documentary The Sandwich Nazi is now playing in Toronto at the Carlton Cinemas and coming to VOD later this year. Keep an eye out for it. And thanks also to Robin Mogul. She knows what she did. You can find Lewis on Twitter at Lewis Bennett, all one word, Bennett with 2 T's. And you should have already found Standby for Tape Backup streaming on Vimeo or at standbyfortapebackup.com, like I told you. Also, you should follow Ross Sutherland on Twitter at Ross G. Sutherland, all one word, and check out his podcast, Imaginary Advice, when you have a moment. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. Throw in a mention of your favorite old tech, why don't you? Thanks for listening.
I'm afraid you're just too darn